Do you ever feel overwhelmed by the ever-changing world of technology? Tech It Out can help make some sense of it all. Breaking down geek speak into street speak, technology columnist, author, and TV personality Mark Saltzman covers consumer technology each week for every listener. Mark tackles the latest news, reviews, and how-tos to help you understand what's hot, what's not, and why.
Hey everyone, welcome to Tech It Out. I'm your host, Mark Saltzman. Thank you for tuning in. This is episode 187. Hope you're enjoying the last weekend of the winter. Yes, officially next weekend marks the start of spring, March 20th to be exact. Let's hope our spring is marked by good weather, more businesses opening up, and vaccinations in our arms. Okay, we have a stellar Tech It Out show planned for you this hour. We're going to kick things off with My Sound. It sounds like a great idea, and it's a free app, no less. You connect your Apple Music or Spotify account to share your favorite tracks and playlists, follow friends and others you know, and discover new music with trending songs and playlists of the week. There are no hidden fees or strings. Again, it's called My Sound, one word, capital M, capital S, and it's a completely free social media app for you to use. So a Spotify user can share his or her playlist with a friend on Apple Music and vice versa. You couldn't do that before. We're going to get to that momentarily. Then, we're going to learn about Oura Ring. It's a smart ring with no screen, but as the CEO of Oura Ring will no doubt explain, it can calculate a ton of health and fitness and sleep data that a smartwatch can as well, but perhaps more accurately, or let's say less obtrusively because it's on your finger and with fewer distractions like not buzzing when you get a text message and not showing you who's calling on a screen because there is none. Again, it's called Oura Ring, O-U-R-A. After that, we're going to connect with actor Alan Ritchson, who you no doubt would recognize. He's been in movies like The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, a couple of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies, and he's been in TV shows tied to the DC Comics universe, like Titans, and he was Aquaman in Smallville, actually. So Alan wrote, produced, directed, and starred in a new comedy sci-fi action flick called Dark Web Cicaca 3301. Just came out last week. And we're going to learn all about that with Alan Ritchson. So we'll catch up with him. All of this and more on a brand new Tech It Out, powered by ASUS, which I'll tell you more about shortly. But let's officially kick off the show with our first interview. As many of my listeners know, I'm a huge fan of music. In fact, I was a musician before I was a techie. I managed and drummed in a band called Dramedy until the early 90s. And so I get excited whenever there's some cool new tech tied to music. We're going to hear about a promising app right now. it's called My Sound. Joining me on the line to tell me all about it are its co-founders, Michael Tobolo, who's Chief Operating Officer, and Dylan Bejana, he's CEO. Welcome to the show, Michael and Dylan. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for having us. Really appreciate the time.
Yeah, we appreciate the opportunity, Mark. Thank you.
Sure thing. So, Michael, let's start with you. At a high level, what is My Sound all about?
So, Mark, I'm actually going to start off with asking you the question. Are you on Spotify or Apple Music yourself?
Both, but Spotify is my go-to streaming service platform.
Now, do you happen to have any other friends or others you know that are on Apple Music?
Yeah, not as many.
Well, in that case, I'm hoping you know the struggle of trying to share anything across the two platforms. So what My Sound is doing is it's taking a new approach on how music is shared by making it social. So the app allows you to share songs and playlists on a dedicated platform to music. Not only this, but the app is designed for discovering music from those you follow and by seeing the trending songs and playlists on the My Sound page.
Well, we actually really pride ourselves in the simplicity of My Sound. As soon as you download the app, you sign up, and with a click, connect with Spotify, Apple Music, or both. From here, you have full access to the app with a really intuitive design centered around 4 main tabs. A Home tab to see what playlists and songs your friends share. The Discover tab to see the trending songs and playlists of the week. The Post tab that lets you share your favorite playlist or song from either streaming platform. Or your Personal tab, showing your followers, posts, settings, and more. Just like any other social media app, Mark, users share, like, and follow.
Okay, so whether you're on Spotify or Apple Music or both, and I think those are the only 2 supported streaming music services at this point, you can then share something you're listening to, whether it's a playlist or a song, with your friends, regardless of which platform that they've subscribed to. Is that right?
Correct, Mark.
And how did you come up with this idea?
Well, when Mike and I first met in first year of university, we really bonded over music. We would always show each other new songs we like. I asked him for his playlist one day, forgetting he was on Spotify and I'm on Apple Music. We instantly looked for a solution and couldn't find one. We found a lot of our friends had the same problem. Not only that, but once we shared all of our favorite songs, we had a tough time trying to discover something new. That's where we came up with My Sound. And after a year of work, we launched Boxing Day of 2020.
That's great, Dylan. Now, Michael, correct me if I'm wrong. If I am listening to something on Spotify, I can share right from within the app or the desktop app, like on social media or something. So how would my sound differ? I guess it's just that it's cross-platform then.
Correct, yeah. So essentially, we aggregate all users across Apple Music and Spotify into one place. And because the app is dedicated to music specifically, it's not as inconvenient as, say, going onto an Instagram story and posting it there. Your songs are able to save and be on a platform where you're able to collect likes. And like I said, it's on a platform dedicated to music rather than other things like photos of life and lifestyle.
Okay, got it. And Dylan, maybe you could walk us through the process. So let's say I'm on Apple Music or one of our listeners is on Spotify. How do you get going?
We actually have a built-in playlist converter within our app. And there are currently a few solutions on the App Store, but they all require a monthly payment to convert all of your songs. You said you're on both Apple Music and Spotify, correct, Mark?
I am, but I'm probably an anomaly. I think most people will have one or the other.
Do you ever try to transfer your playlist between the two?
I haven't, no.
Well, a lot of people do when they're trying to switch streaming platforms because they want to keep their playlists. And actually, you can use our app for that. It's a free playlist converter with actually no ads. So that would be great.
So when you share a song or a playlist with someone through MySound, what do they see on their, say, mobile device? And do they need the MySound app as well?
Well, Mark, how do you see what your friends share on Instagram?
It would show up in my feed, I guess, or as a story.
MySound is very similar. It shows up on your feed. The most recent playlists and songs from people you follow have shared. By connecting Spotify or Apple Music, users can share playlists and songs from their music library. Yes, they would have to download the app. There, you can just search up your profile and see what playlists they have shared. Matt is Dylan, by the way, if you want to follow me on there.
We are chatting with Dylan Bejana, CEO of MySound. We also have on the line Michael Tabolo. He's COO, operating officer. We're chatting about this app called MySound. Now, do you think companies like Spotify or Apple want an app like yours to exist? I mean, you would think that they want to keep everybody within their own sort of walled garden. Is that fair?
So actually, a few months ago, some Reddit users had gotten a hold of our app and were telling us all about how they loved the idea and what we were doing at MySound. And one user decided one night to give us both heart attacks by telling us Apple has previously shut down apps that were designed for playlist conversion between Apple Music and Spotify. So naturally that night, as any sane person would do, we hunkered down and waited for the Apple lawyers to break down the doors and steal the app away from us. And I think that's when we really started to kind of question this as well. And quite honestly, we feel, if anything, MySound is a great addition for promoting both services. When we build a dedicated network of users that really want to join in on the music sharing community, this would almost entice people to join either of the supported streaming services. And as we've mentioned, our goal is not to mess with the streaming services themselves, but offer a new way for them to be used by music lovers.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Michael, how much does MySound cost? And do you need an iPhone? Does it also work on Android? And what about other platforms like Windows and Mac and all that?
So currently we're only supported on iOS for the iPhone, iPad, so on and so forth, and we're absolutely free. People already pay enough for their streaming services, and we want to kind of enable a community that can freely share their music.
Okay. Any word on when you think Android may come down the road?
We have plans to launch on Android in the future, but currently we want to work on making the best product possible on iOS and then transfer over at a later date.
All right. And I guess, Dylan, you just go to the Apple App Store, type in MySound with no space, and you'll be able to download it.
Yes. You can also check us out at mysoundapp.com for the download link and more information.
Okay, mysoundapp.com. Michael and Dylan, thanks so much. Congratulations on the launch of this app, and I hope it does really well for you. I'm going to check it out for sure.
Thank you again for having us, Mark. Really appreciate it.
Sure thing. Cheers.
Thank you.
Pretty impressive, especially for young 20-somethings who came up with a great idea. And I am surprised that Apple and Spotify allow it. But hey, kudos to them. I guess they found a workaround. And if you want to grab it before it's too late, but I think they're okay. Again, it's MySound. One word, MYSOUND. Don't forget, on the program this hour, we're also going to chat with Oura Ring to learn about their new smart ring and why it might be beneficial over a smart watch. And we're also going to talk with Alan Ritchson, the writer and star of a new film called Dark Web Cicaca 3301, based on these online puzzle, crypto kind of puzzle, weird, dark secret society kind of thingy that happened a couple of years ago. I'll let Alan explain all that. But don't forget, we're going to chat with Alan this hour as well. This program, both the podcast and radio show, is powered by ASUS. For those in search of incredible, ASUS creates technology for today and tomorrow's smart life. And that includes its line of award-winning laptops and desktops, accessories like monitors, as well as mobile devices, smartwatches, smartphones, tablets, and much more. For those in search of incredible, visit asus.com/US/radio for more info. That's asus.com/US/radio. And before we take a short break and return with Oura Ring, I did want to thank those who took the time to write in, who read my last article in USA Today. I do write weekly for USA Today and their parent company, Gannett. It was on 5 things to look for if you're shopping for a dash cam, a dashboard camera. If you didn't catch the article, you can just Google dash cam, DASHCAM, and my name, Mark Saltzman, Mark with a C, SALTZMAN, to find the article. But in a nutshell, I discussed parking mode and why that's cool, voice support for controlling your dashboard camera hands-free, 4K resolution, so better quality video captured by that dash cam, opting for a dual lens model if you are an Uber driver or Lyft driver and you want a camera both in front of the vehicle as well as what's going on inside the vehicle. It's a good idea. And finally, app support and why you may want that with the latest dash cams. So once again, type USA Today into your favorite search engine with my name, Mark Saltzman, Mark with a C, Saltzman with a Z, and you'll be able to pull up my article on 5 things to look for in your next dash cam. So stick with us. We'll be right back with more Tech It Out on the Radio America Network.
Listen to Tech It Out whenever you want. Find the Tech It Out podcast at iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Tech It Out. When it comes to wearable tech, many of us think of a smartwatch or an activity tracker on your wrist, right? But there are also smart glasses. There's high-tech clothing with advanced sensors in them, and smart rings too. Joining us to talk about the Oura smart ring family is Harpreet Singh Rai, Chief Executive Officer of Oura. Welcome to the show, Harpreet. Good to chat with you.
Mark, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Before we talk about Oura Ring, and for our listeners, it's spelled O-U-R-A, tell us about the appeal of wearable tech.
Yeah, look, I think the hard part for consumers today is understanding your health on a daily basis. How am I doing? And, unfortunately, the way the healthcare system works today is, right, we really only go to the doctor, right, or the emergency room, after it's too late, right? It's almost like the car engine has broken down and now we need to fix something. But we have new cars today that have better dashboards, and you can sort of see that, hey, the check engine oil light is on. I think wearable tech gives that same power to the users about their health. They can get daily feedback on how they're doing and start to understand how their lifestyle decisions impact their health.
I like that. It's like preventative maintenance.
Exactly.
So why would someone consider a wearable on their finger opposed to their wrist? Is it like less obtrusive?
Yeah, I think it's really convenience and is probably what most people feel, but also accuracy. I mean, on the convenient perspective, right, like, especially because we focus on sleep and recovery, wearing a wrist tracker that's big and bulky, sort of blinks really brightly in the middle of the night, you have to wear it pretty tightly, can actually like cut off circulation if you're wearing it for a long time. It's just uncomfortable. Frankly, like a lot of people even take off their watches, normal watches, not smart watches, like when they're doing things like typing. And, in the past, I think people who've had Fitbits or Jawbones, one of the biggest, in fact, the biggest return issue is a lot of the straps breaking. And what we found with the Ring is that you put it on and people say they forget it's there. We specifically use titanium, so it's ultra light, so it doesn't really bother you. There's no blinking lights that you see that are bothering you in the middle of the night. And, it actually lasts about, 7 days, the battery life. So that's also stronger as a form factor on the finger than the wrist. Now, the other even more important reason is accuracy. Everyone, when they, go to the hospital, their heart rate and their SpO2 is measured on that finger. the reason that technology existed is because the pulse on your finger is so much stronger. We did the same thing in a wearable. It took a long time to cram all those tiny sensors in there, but I'd really say accuracy and that convenience that the consumer loves.
Okay, so I want to hear more about those Oura Ring features in a moment, but just a side note, and truthfully, I did write the book Apple Watch for Dummies. So, some people say, well, I like smartwatches because when I'm chatting with somebody, say at a dinner table, and, a notification goes off, it's less rude than pulling out your phone. I would actually argue it's even more rude to look at your wrist, because then the person you're sitting with, at that restaurant may think, oh, geez, maybe they want to go home or something, because it implies you're bored when you look at your wrist, right? So I would argue that that's not necessarily true.
I agree. It's this weird thing where, we put almost the cell phones on the table when we're in a meeting room, and they've been around longer, right? So it's a little bit more socially acceptable. I feel the same way to look at your phone, but frankly, we felt like even wrist and even your phone is more of a distraction device, right? And in fact, the average human nowadays, right, touches a phone over 100 times per day, even more than that. It's almost 10 times per hour awake. And if you think about that, like just being that constant distraction, we didn't want yet another distraction device. We're already overloaded with information. We wanted something that was sort of unobtrusive, silent, fits in with sort of your fashion, your lifestyle, is really easy to use and elegant.
All right. So with that in mind, Harpreet, talk to us about Oura Ring. What are some of its key features and applications?
Yeah. So, look, it's a wearable ring. It doesn't have any, any sort of like screens or blinking lights that you see. But what it does do is it tracks your health and it pairs to an app, both on iOS and Google, right, on the Android ecosystem. Mm-hmm. And some of the key features are really we give people 3 scores every single day and insights in the app. So if you're an Oura Ring user, you'll get a sleep score that tells you how well you slept last night and some of the details we can get into there, activity, how often you're moving, how intensely you're moving. But actually, the main score we focus on is something called readiness. Readiness gives users a perspective of actually, how am I doing over sort of a short, medium, and longer term? It may have been a really tough week, and that's starting to wear on me. That is accounted for in your readiness. So we look at physiological characteristics like heart rate variability, which is a great indicator of stress. We look at respiratory rate there. We look at even temperature, which is really interesting. And also your sleep and activity patterns in the prior night and prior week to really give this encompassing overall health score to the user.
All right. So, and as you touched on earlier, that does include a heart score, if you will, too. So it has some the ability to monitor heart health to some degree.
Correct. Yeah, we actually track every single heartbeat all throughout the night. You get to see that rich data. In fact, we're the only wearable that showed our heart rate data overnight is 99% correlated to an EKG overnight, that same hospital grade quality. And we give tons and tons of information and analytics, but in a really easy to use app.
All right. But just to be clear, because some smartwatches can do this, there is no integrated electrocardiogram in the ring.
Correct. There is no EKG sensor itself. What users typically use if they have AFib, atrial fibrillation, which Apple's done a really good job getting that out there. But you'll be able to see actually beat by beat heart rate data, your heart rate curve all throughout the night, when your lowest resting heart rate happened versus normal, and your heart rate variability. Again, that's sort of the change in every single heartbeat, which is a sign of stress all throughout the night too.
We'll continue learning about the Oura Ring when we return. Stick with us.
Want to follow Mark? Google him. Mark with a C and Saltzman with a Z. Breaking down geek speak into street speak. This is Tech It Out. Tech It Out with technology columnist, author, and TV personality Mark Saltzman.
Welcome back to Tech It Out. We're chatting with Harpreet Singh Rai, CEO of Oura. We're learning about the Oura Smart Ring family. I say family because you can customize the design and color of it, but we'll get to that in a moment. Okay, so it sounds like health and wellness is the number one application for this wearable device. Could you also use it, though, for notifications, like if a text comes in or a calendar appointment that you need to know about? Does it vibrate like any haptic feedback?
Nope. That was a conscious decision for us not to have it blink or vibrate when you get some of that stuff. Again, I think you already got your phone. No reason to bother you twice.
And since there's no screen, talk to us about that deeper dive on the app. What kind of data can you glean there?
Yeah. So every morning, users open their Oura app, and what they see first is that readiness score. We then have something called an insight engine. So you get to actually see a little bit of insight, guidance, and some recommendations on what you should do or try to do that day. And so we do that for the readiness score. We give an insight message. Same thing for the sleep score and activity score. That readiness score will actually determine what we give you in terms of an activity target that day, right? It doesn't make a lot of sense to do a really, really hard workout after a bad night of sleep. Well, that's what the readiness score is actually used for. A lot of people will say, oh, I'm actually really ready today. My resting heart rate was really good, below my average. I got 6-7 hours of sleep. Man, my respiratory rate was even better than normal. I have a high readiness score. We will change your activity target that day for you to actually go ahead and focus on getting a harder workout when you're well recovered for it. And vice versa. When you feel like crap, it's been a tough week at work, and you're not getting much sleep and you're stressed, that's going to reflect in your data. So we give people insights, and then they can do a deeper dive in each one of those areas to actually see. We give 8 different variables that you can track in each one of those scores every single day. And so I think, there's a ton of data if you want to go deep, yet we still keep it high level and give you the most important takeaways in that insight engine.
Is it true, Harpreet, that researchers found Oura Ring could recognize symptoms of COVID-19 in advance?
Yes. Yeah. We actually during the pandemic, we were the first wearable to launch a study with an academic institution. So we worked with, UCSF, University of California in San Francisco, and we actually donated over 3,000 rings to frontline healthcare workers. And then we actually opened up the study to all of our Oura users. We had over 70,000 people enroll in that study. And what the researchers were able to show, they published a paper that came out in a medical journal in early December. And what they showed was actually using characteristics of the Oura Ring, including temperature, respiratory rate, and heart rate variability, we were able to see for 38 out of the first 50 subjects that tested positive in that cohort, their data changing significantly up to 3 days in advance before they felt a symptom. So using all the granular level data that we track, researchers were able to extract that, hey, for most people, we can see that you're getting sick up to 3 days before you feel symptoms, which is sort of incredible.
And I read with up to 90% accuracy.
Yeah, I think so. We had multiple research studies. So that first study was UCSF. There was 2 other studies actually done with us last year with academic institutions. The other one was West Virginia University, the Rockefeller Neuroscience Institute, and they actually put that press release out saying that Oura can see up to, signs up to 3 days in advance with 90% accuracy. There's even another study with Texas A&M where they actually used rings on soldiers and were able to see an outbreak as well. And they talked about, 2 to 3 days in advance.
With something so small, how is battery life? And how do you charge up the Oura Ring?
Yeah, actually, the battery life is better than your typical wearable. So it turns out that pulse signal on your finger, the same place that they measure your heart rate in a hospital, is actually about 100 times stronger than the pulse signal on your wrist. We were able to use that and create technology around it, which leads to actually almost a week-long battery life. So most users will get 5 to 6 nights, versus sort of the 1 day of their Apple Watch, and I think that's another reason why people love it. We send a charging dock with each device. It's a USB-C, plugs into sort of any phone charger, and it's almost looks like a $50, and you just sort of like pop the ring on it. It's a nice little, small little dock that's really lightweight.
Just to be clear, the dock is USB-C, or is there actually a USB-C port on the ring?
Oh, no, the dock is USB-C.
Yeah, that's what I thought, because you wouldn't want any water or moisture getting in there. Yeah. Okay. So it uses like magnetic induction?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it uses induction to charge a ring on top of that wire on that.
Got it.
On that little charger. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Before we wrap up, I read the NBA purchased more than 1,000 of your Oura Rings for some players and coaches. What's that all about?
Yeah, so I think, sports leagues last year, right, were some of the first organizations to go back to work. And so when the NBA was trying to plan their bubble, they wanted to use the latest and greatest technology to make sure that, not just players and coaches, but even staff, right, all staff at the team level, and even the, in the bubble itself, there's over 2,000 people there. So yeah, we were able able to do a partnership with the NBA, which was incredible. And, we actually had an enterprise level, sort of dashboard where people could see if there's all of a sudden an outbreak occurring with a certain team or, things like that. And that actually really helped them during the bubble to keep everyone safe and make sure everyone was healthy, and help them prioritize tests if someone, looked like their data was off. So, that was a great outcome. In fact, because of that, I would say, and our research with UCSF and other sports leagues followed. So we were able to partner with the UFC, with NASCAR, with Red Bull Racing and Formula One, and a bunch of other sports teams as well. So it ended up being, I would say, a really good finding from that research that led to a lot of organizations using the product as they figured out how to go to work safely during the pandemic.
Wow, that's super cool. And especially as a startup as well, it must be pretty exciting. So how much does Oura Ring cost? And I did hint at different designs. Maybe you can elaborate a bit on that. And the website is simply ouraring.com, correct?
Correct. Yeah, that's OURARING.com, ouraring.com. And, the devices cost $299 to $399. They vary, depending on the color. So we do have a gold ring, and we also have a stealth black and matte black ring, which are $399. But our basic models start, the regular finishing starts at $299. And, the app is included as part of the purchase. There's no subscription. And you just go to the website to learn more.
Okay. Again, the website, ouraring.com, OURAring.com. Harpreet Singh Rai, great to chat with you. Continued success and have a great spring. Thanks again.
Mark, thanks a ton. I really appreciate it. And thanks for having me on the show.
When we return on Tech It Out, we're going to catch up with actor Alan Ritchson, who not only is starring in a new film called Dark Web Cicada 3301 about the real-life internet phenomenon, but he wrote it, directed it, and produced it. So stick with us. You are listening to Tech It Out on the Radio America Network. I'm your host, Mark Saltzman. We'll be right back with Alan Ritchson. Stick with us.
Breaking down geek speak into street speak. Tech It Out, hosted by Mark Saltzman.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to Tech It Out. If I listed the filmography of my next guest, we'd run out of time. But you've no doubt seen Alan Ritchson as Aquaman on Smallville. He was in The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, a pair of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles flicks, and in the DC superhero series Titans, to name just a few movies and TV shows. He's a former model, he's a singer, clearly he has so much free time on his hands, as well as the writer, director, producer, and co-star in a brand new film released last week by Lionsgate called Dark Web Cicada 3301. Welcome to the show, Alan. Good to chat with you.
Hey, thanks. Nice to chat with you too.
Congrats on the new film. Again, for our listeners, it's called Dark Web Cicada 3301. As I mentioned, not only did you direct the film and co-write it, but you star in it as well. Tell us about it.
So Cicada 3301 is based on the real secret society Cicada 3301 and these intriguing scavenger hunt style games that they've played since 2012. People thought for a long time this was like an NSA or CIA recruitment tool. These online games are puzzles and riddles that I think baffle myself and many others. But in the hunt for super geniuses, it seems as though some of the winners have disappeared. So it seemed like good fodder for a movie, and seems to be well received so far.
So I was going to ask you, Alan, about in real life. This was these posted cryptid puzzles on 4chan and social platforms like Twitter. So that obviously inspired you to write this. Tell us about the film.
Yeah, so it's a genre blending film. I mean, it's a drama, but there's moments of action, thrills, and I think people realize pretty quickly it's a comedy, which is, I think, unexpected for this type of movie, and the reason to me why this is so appealing to a broader audience. I mean, I personally am not tech savvy enough to make a tech movie that I think can hold people's attention, and I don't know how many people would be into truly the technical aspects of what Cicada 3301 was doing. So to me, it was more about the ideas that they preach and wrestling with those. The part of the game was educating the people playing, which millions of people are aware of Cicada, and many have tried the game. But it was about educating them on their worldviews, the themes are large, the institution versus the individual. What kind of world order should we should we have? Are we to govern ourselves, or are we to be governed? You know, I mean, these are big ideas, and I think they're worth talking about. But I don't think many people want to have that conversation in a sterile 2-hour environment. You know, so to me, I mean, to make it a really fun adventure that also dabbles in these concepts is something worth making a movie about, in my opinion. So the comedy helps relieve some of that, you know, some of the tension that technical jargon creates.
Awesome. And the film just debuted. Was it online only? From what I read initially, Lionsgate had purchased it for a digital release. Certainly during COVID, that makes sense. Or is there also a theatrical window?
Yeah, there's as I understand it, there's a limited theatrical window. I don't think it's got a huge rollout, but you know, I'm not sure how that, you know, how these theatrical windows work these days anyway, you know, considering I don't know who's open, but yeah, it's mostly available online. So anywhere people are used to getting their film, Apple, you know, iTunes, on-demand platforms, I think they can find this.
Okay, yeah, VOD.
Yeah, it's a VOD and then Blu-ray on the 16th of March. So we'll see if it heads towards a streaming fate eventually, but not on the Netflix side or Amazon side of things yet.
All right. Since this show is about tech, Alan, I know you said you're not super techy, but do you like gadgets, video games? Do you play around with apps?
I do. I mean, it's a point of contention in my house because my wife is somebody who she'd be fine with like a Motorola Razr, you know, like as long as it flips and it turns on, I can still hear my mom when I talk to her. She'd be cool with that, you know. I, on the other hand, I think like a lot of guys, just really love the advancements that technology makes and want to, you know, I just want to keep up with it and keep the phones fresh, you know. But you know, the tools that I use are mostly related to film. You know, you kind of have to have the latest hardware to keep up with the software these days. You know, and editing, and you know, editing suites and you know, pre-production, post-production. You know, the tools are pretty amazing these days, but it requires a huge amount of hardware. So I've got like all the gadgets, and you know, I'm grateful for that. But I don't play a lot of games, you know. I mean, I'm just more tool oriented, you know. Like I've created kind of for myself, you know, what I would consider like a freestanding app out of something like GoodNotes for creating a storyboard shot list hybrid, you know. Like I like creating those kind of tools for myself that just work for what I do. But outside of that, I mean, I don't, you know, I'm no coder.
Okay, I got it. Unlike the character that you play in the film, I think he is a hacker. Is that right?
So I played this character, Agent Carver, who is a bumbling, kind of dim-witted NSA agent, you know, on the trail of Cicaca 3301. And in the film, the premise is that the government really wants in to this organization that they can't get in, and they want to put a stop to these ideas. And so they use Connor Black, this genius from the wrong side of the tracks, who's able to figure this kind of stuff out. He stumbles upon this organization, is intrigued, starts chasing them down, and the government decides he's the way in. And so they try and force him into it and use him as a tool to get inside. And a lot of that came from speculation during the games that this is what was really happening, that the government was trying to use some of these individuals to figure out who exactly was behind this and what they really wanted. So sort of loosely inspired by the real events. But the character Connor Black, who is tech savvy, much more tech savvy than I am. Thank God I had Google up and running while writing this thing.
We'll continue chatting with Alan Ritchson when we return on Tech It Out. Stay with us.
Follow Mark Saltzman on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. Listen to Tech It Out whenever you want.
Before we continue chatting with Alan Ritchson, this show is powered by ASUS, the company that creates technology for today and tomorrow's smart life. And that includes its line of award-winning laptops, the ZenBook family, the VivoBooks, Expert Books for more of a business-grade laptop, and Chromebooks as well. Check out asus.com/US/radio for more info. Again, we are chatting with Alan Ritchson. He is the star, co-writer, director, and producer behind a new film, Dark Web, Cicaca 3301. We're learning about the film as well as his technical expertise outside of the movie, or lack thereof, as he's claiming. But you were about to say before the break that you are working on something. Tell us about it.
I've been working on an app idea. It's a platform to connect producers to talent directly. In my business, there's this middleman of agents or representatives that often make it very difficult for people, even well-funded, well-resourced projects, to connect to talent that would otherwise probably like to know about offers coming in or that kind of thing. It's difficult. So I'm creating a platform for these people, and in working on that, I've got brilliant minds around me, thank God, and they're like, okay, so drop into GitHub and let's go over some of this code real quick. And I'm like, I don't know what the hell you guys are talking about. Like, can I just show you a picture of what I want? You make that pretty picture. Like, there's so much to the technical side of things that I realize the more involved I get in it, the less I know. So that's kind of where I am. But for anybody who's into this kind of thing, I think we did a good job of honoring the truths and the technical specifications of this. My brother's a software engineer, and I sent him the script before we shot it. And I said, can you just make sure I'm not making a fool of myself? Do I have it right? And he was like, actually, I'm really surprised. Like, you got it. You got it. I mean, there's one or two little super technical things, but, we finagled those, and he was happy.
Card-carrying geeks like yours truly, pocket protector and all, we're not easy on films and movies that, and TV shows that get it wrong. We're pretty vocal. But it's great. I'm excited to see the flick. Are you an iPhone or an Android guy?
iPhone all day.
By extension, are you a Mac?
I mean, it just works. It just works. Yeah, of course. The whole ecosystem. By the way, I think the real important work here is figuring out how to modernize the pocket protector joke, because you
I know, right?
admit you are a card-carrying pocket protector. But I think I think today it's like a wrist guard. Would a wrist guard be like a proper...
the modern equivalent of the pocket protector question? Yeah, I got to figure that out. That's hilarious. Before we wrap up, Alan, do you prefer your work in front of the camera or behind it?
I'm grateful for the work that I've had in front of the camera. I'm heading into a new show, Jack Reacher, which is something I'm honored to be able to bring to life, a character that iconic. And, I love that work. I do. But I personally deeply enjoy being behind the lens. For me, it's just a creative thing. I mean, you mentioned in your intro, which I appreciate, you mentioned modeling. I haven't done that in a long time, but when I was young, that was a career for me, and it was sort of my way out of my hometown, But that's an industry that keeps you silent. I mean, they don't want to hear, they just want to send your body around to cities for photographers to look at, and you're really just a hunk of meat that they're sharing from town to town. I don't like the industry. For me, having come from that kind of background where you're told, please don't say anything, just stand there, to not be a part of the creative process is tricky, and acting is very similar in that sense. You're the last link in the creative chain. The story's been written, the film has been funded and financed. There are a lot of executives involved. They've gotten all the crew hired. They picked the location. And then it's like, okay, now let's bring the actor in, fly him in, have him say the lines. And so when you show up sometimes and you're like, actually, this doesn't feel very honest to me. I mean, I would probably say something more like this. They're like, I've had it said to me, it's baked crispy hard at this point. Don't try and change it now. And that was always hard for me to hear, because I'm like, well, I think there's a better idea there. Nobody asked, and nobody's asking, So to be behind the lens means, for me, having some say creatively, and I think everybody thinks their ideas are the best, but I just think that I have something to contribute as far as whatever my creative voice is. So I prefer being behind the lens, being at the start of those conversations.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah,
we were able to do both, which is fantastic. Evident by Dark Web, Cicaca 3301. Congratulations on the launch, and all the best. Have a great spring. Stay healthy.
Thanks so much. You too.
Hey, well, I hope you enjoyed this week's Tech It Out. We learned about the My Sound app app that lets Spotify and Apple Music users share playlists between one another, even though they're competing streaming services. We learned about the Oura Ring, a wearable smart ring, and we caught up with Alan Ritchson, whose new film, Dark Web Cicaca 3301, is now available. Thank you to Western Digital for all your ongoing support on this program. Be sure to pick up a Western Digital external SSD drive. And a huge thank you to ASUS for those in search of incredible. asus.com/us/radio to check out their laptops and other gear. Thank you again for tuning in. Have a happy and healthy week ahead. And I look forward to catching up with you next weekend on another episode of Tech It Out. Bye-bye for now.